Welcome to the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center, and this is one of the main meeting points for all things Final Four here in San Antonio, as we are getting you ready for Duke and Houston. Yes, the hype train has arrived in San Antonio, and now will the Cougs from Houston be the ones to derail it? My name is Jason Bristol from KHOU 11 in Houston.
I'm Jaelen Gilkey, WFMY News 2 in Greensboro, and I just might be the conductor of that hype train you mentioned.
Zack Tawatari from KHOU 11, and I cannot wait to see the strength on strength of these two teams tonight. And I think the first thing we have to talk about, Jaelen, is the guy everyone's been talking about. He was named the AP Player of the Year yesterday. You've seen Cooper Flagg play in person. What is it that makes him so special?
Well, there's so many things that I can name off in the list that makes Cooper Flagg so special, but I think the number one thing that takes him over the top, whether it not be, basketball skills or acumen or being a teammate, or it's the person he is. He's a great person. You can tell he's a very focused young man, a very humble young man, and he has one goal. He came to Duke to accomplish that mission, and it's something that's resonated throughout the locker room all year long. This season will be considered a failure amongst this roster if they do not win the national championship. And he brings that.
I think it was very interesting. Houston fans, I think, feel very good because of Houston's DNA, its culture, defense, rebounding, effort, intensity. But then, as Zack pointed out before we went live here, is that when you look at Duke, you're talking about a team that has so many efficiencies, and they do everything well.
They do, and Paul Gallant and I were talking about this on Sports Extra on Sunday.
Paul Gallant, he's a radio broadcaster in Houston.
From ESPN 97.5, calling this the de facto national championship, because I think it is. You've got strength on strength. You've got this incredible number one rated team in defensive efficiency versus this number one team in offensive efficiency, and Duke also ranking in the top 5 in defensive efficiency. You have to think that from a talent perspective, they really do have the edge in this game.
Yeah, there's not a team in college basketball that can match up player for player with this Duke roster, and that's something that we've seen since the very beginning of the year. But one thing I have noticed, and you mentioned it, was the defensive efficiency of this Duke team. That's their identity. This isn't a normal Duke team that usually gets the stigma of, oh, we got a lot of great sets and we got some good shooters and usually lacks toughness, right? That's not this team. This team is rough, they're rugged, they're physical, they're on the string defensively. I mean, they communicate. It's so effortless. Everything they do is effortless, especially on the defensive end. They protect the rim like no other. I mean, the ball pressure that the guards put on their opponents, it's something special to see. I've been doing this a little while now, and this is the best college basketball team I've seen so far in my career.
And that is problematic that Duke plays defense so well, because now you're looking at one strength canceled out potentially by another strength. I do wonder, though, has Duke truly seen a defense as good, as tenacious, as aggressive as Houston has? That's what I keep going back to in my head. Because listen, in the regional round, Houston plays Tennessee. All we heard about was, oh, this Tennessee defense and how good it is, and this Tennessee offense, which has a couple of good scorers and a point guard who's one of the best in the country. And they were held to 15 points in the first half. Now, what we've seen from Houston is they will typically get ahead, build a double-digit lead, and then teams start to make up some ground. The difference in the Tennessee game was you had Emmanuel Sharp knock down 2 big threes, and also Malik Wilson hit a big 3, and that gave the Cougs some distance, some length past Tennessee. So that's my big question. And granted, you haven't experienced. You haven't had Milos Uzan.
I have not.
Or Malik Wilson or JoJo Tugler right up in your grill.
No, sir.
So what was the best defense that you can remember Duke playing? And will they truly? How will you know? Will it be in the first 10 minutes, first 5 minutes, first half, that, okay, Duke is finally acclimated to what the Cougs are doing defensively?
Well, to answer your first question, I think the best defense that this Duke's team has seen all year is a team they see every day is themselves. I don't think there's a team in the nation that is able to challenge the 5 guys on the floor for the Blue Devils like the guys in that own locker room. So when you have McDonald's All-Americans clashing every day in Cameron Indoor to get reps and to get better, I think that's where your teeth are cut. They're not necessarily one of these teams that come in and you can overwhelm them with your size, you can overwhelm them with your talent. You can have Isaiah Evans come off the bench and score 26 points and hit 8 threes. You know, things of that nature can happen and kind of blow the game out of proportion for this Duke team. It was something we've seen a lot. Now, there was one point that you mentioned about this Houston team that they share a similarity with Duke. They have a tendency to get out 15, 20 points and not really be able to close the door to the way and the liking of Blue Devil Nation. And that the people, you know, that call themselves the Cameron Crazies would like it to, you know, be to close the game how they would like for it to go. So now, when will I know this is a game that I feel like Duke will have it in hand? I will be able to tell probably that first media timeout.
Okay.
Which comes, under 16?
Yeah.
I'll have an idea as to what and how this team is focused, what they're going to struggle with when it comes to matching up with Houston, and who will be the person and the impact player, because that's one thing you never know with Duke. Who's it going to be? Everybody talks Cooper Flagg.
Right.
But, you know, so far through 4 games in the tournament, Duke has had 3 guys lead the team in scoring.
Yep.
And those are the 3 freshmen, right?
So, no. We had Proctor. He led him the first 2 games.
Okay.
And then it was Cooper Flagg's 30-point game, the battle with Caleb Love, when Caleb Love had 35.
Okay.
And if Arizona could have had maybe somebody else do anything, they might have been able to upset Duke there. And then last game, it was Con Knipple, who showed you exactly why he's projected to be a top 10 pick in this year's draft as well.
Well, all 3 of those guys can go off for 25 on any given night, and that's kind of the danger, right? If you're Houston, do you double somebody, leave somebody else open? I think the prevailing idea is that hopefully you make Knepel shoot the ball, because he is a freshman and you never know. Maybe he does have a bad game,
that's
but
what
as you
scares
said,
me. I don't like
that game plan.
I don't like
need to
that.
pray.
I don't like that game plan.
I don't like it
that
either.
game plan.
I don't like it either. I mean, and going back to your question though about, you know, Duke seeing this great defense of Houston, I don't think they've seen a defense like Houston this year, just because I know that after Houston has played teams, the opposing coach will say, there's no way we could have prepared for their physicality, their speed, really their aggressiveness is what it comes down to. The way they attack the gaps, the way they attack on ball screens. Houston is just absolutely excellent at that. A lot of that does come down to the effort, the culture, you know, that they've built there, and the mentality. Having said that, there are just so many weapons on Duke's offense that I really feel this game is going to come down to one-on-one matchups. Every guy is going to have to play a great game in their own matchup, because you can't really afford to double one person and leave another open.
And I kind of think that's where these 2 teams differ. Duke can have a game tonight. Say Cooper Flagg gives you 16 points, maybe 6-7 assists, 8-9 rebounds, and Duke could win this game.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't think Houston can have a game where their best player
You're right about that.
doesn't give you at least 20 points, and you guys still have a chance to win.
Against a caliber opponent like Duke, because LJ Cryer did not play particularly well in the first game. I think it was against Purdue in the regionals, finished with 5, I believe. And then other guys had to pick up the slack. That's an excellent point, because I truly believe that if for Houston to win, they're going to need not necessarily their best game from everybody, but they're going to have to knock down shots, especially beyond the arc. I happen to go back and look at some of the great upsets in NCAA championship game history. The ones that really came to mind to me were, and I'm trying to draw some parallels here, would be the Fab 5 from Michigan, because you've got a Fab 3. And the one thing, and granted, 1985, there was no three-point shot.
Right.
Georgetown, Villanova, Wildcats upset the Hoyas. One constant in those 2 games, back-to-back 92-93, in which Michigan lost. One game, they shot 10% from 3, and the other game they shot around 30% from 3. And I don't know if you can stop Knippel.
Go Gators! Go Gators!
As you can hear, there's two other teams here, not just Houston and Duke.
They wouldn't know it by our live stream.
Not the final two.
But anyhow,
Yeah.
Knippel is so dangerous.
Man.
And they've got so many options for shooting threes. But I don't think that they're counting on one guy to have a bad game. I think they're going to need subpar games from all of those Duke offensive threats.
And I think the biggest X factor tonight is going to be Kamal Malawach. What is he able to do?
What is he able to do on his best nights and on his worst nights?
On his best nights, he can pick and pop, catch the ball at the top of the key, knock down, rain home a three, and that's what really that's a backbreaker. Kamal Malawach, he hits a three or two, it's going to be an avalanche at that point because he's going to get those options and those looks off the pick and roll. I mean, they have so many, I don't know how many alley-oops they've thrown to him this tournament alone, but he's got to be leading the tournament in dunks. It's simple. You know, we got Knippel handling the ball. He takes the screen from Malawach right about that elbow area. Malawach is running right to the rim. 7'2", 7'8" wingspan. Throw it up. He's up there. And I know Houston lacks a little bit of size on this roster.
And that's where
that's the biggest. Duke, they've got Malawach 7'2". They've got Gongba coming off the bench at 6'11". Cooper Flagg's 6'9". I mean, their whole starting lineup's over 6'6", as we all know. Isaiah Evans comes off the bench. He's 6'7". I call him the Human Torch. His confidence cannot be shaken. Doesn't matter if he hits 13 threes or he's missed his last 13 threes. He's coming off the bench. As soon as he catches, he's letting it go.
Yeah.
And that's what we have a graphic showing the discrepancy in height. Houston, Duke averages, their starting five, 6'8".
Yeah.
Houston's average is 6'4". So when you're looking at the average height for Duke at 6'8", that's Houston's tallest player at Juwan Roberts, and then Javier Francis, who comes in.
Right.
And the one thing that Houston cannot do is get in foul trouble with those bigs. And JoJo Tugler especially, because I'm very curious to see, Zach, how much we will see JoJo Tugler on Cooper Flagg, because JoJo is this unicorn in the way he defends, his athleticism. So I think that'll be very interesting to see who matches up against Cooper Flagg.
That is going to be an interesting matchup, and I do think it's going to primarily be JoJo. I think it has to be him, just based on the size and the physicality. It has to be him, you know. And then I think a lot of it comes down to who's the second option tonight for Duke, like we were talking
Offensively?
about. Offensively,
Yeah.
Who's the second option for Duke? Because I do think that Cooper Flagg may have a pretty pedestrian game tonight. When you game plan so hard to make him not the X factor in the game, there is going to have to be two or three other guys, and Duke has them to be able to fill in what Cooper Flagg might do by himself on another night.
And I think that's my favorite thing about this team. There's so many options. So we got Sion James, the graduate senior, came from Tulane. I mean, he's just a steady vet. He's going to bring you everything you need. He's going to rebound well from the guard position, which is going to be critical. Another point I want to talk about is rebounding. Can Houston keep Duke off the glass? We'll get there in just a few seconds. We got Sion James, I mentioned already. We got Tyrese Proctor, the vet. He's been there 3 years, the longest tenured Blue Devil. He's got a couple Elite Eight appearances, his first Final Four. Can he complete his Duke arc? His freshman year was John Shire's first year. They come in together. They are synonymous when it comes to Duke basketball. He's the one truly leading the charge to help get the Blue Devils over the hump in honor of his coach, because of just how close they are as a pair. And then, of course, you know, Knippel, who is a 3-level scorer. There's nothing he cannot do on the floor at the collegiate level. Gets to all of his spots, effective from that three, the corner three especially. I mean, and again, we spoke on Malawach, who is the X factor. Right. Because if Houston can't keep him off the rim, it's going to be a long night.
Who's an X factor for you for Houston?
I think it's going to be the perimeter shooting in general.
Okay.
I think it's going to be Uzan, Cryer, and
Emmanuel
Sharp. You know, that's the difference in this Kelvin Sampson team compared to years past. We've talked about this a number of times. Those three guys are 41% from three. And if they can make a couple of threes to keep themselves in the game, not only score-wise, but hitting threes is such a momentum thing, right?
Confidence.
I mean, it makes a huge difference for the mentality and the psyche of your offense. So I really do think that is going to be those three guys on the perimeter. They're going to need to knock down shots.
The numbers will tell you that they will, because they're fifth in the country in three-point percentage at almost 40%, 39.7. I don't know where Duke is, but I'm guessing they're pretty good as well.
And actually, offensively, from beyond the arc is probably the Blue Devils' biggest weakness, but you wouldn't really be able to tell.
Okay.
Just because of the way that they've been putting such great numbers on the board. I mean, they've scored over 100 points 5 games this season. I mean, the least amount of points they've scored in the game this season, 77. So the pace that they play with, they're not a great transition team, but they're a great secondary break team. So, you know, it might not be a fast break layup, but that secondary option after that second swing of the ball, they're lethal. They get to their spots and knock down the shots that they get because there's so much talent and the defenses are spread so thin.
I find it very interesting about how John Shire, one of the first people he wanted to talk to when he got the head coaching job at Duke, who does he want to come and scrimmage? He wants to meet up with Houston.
Absolutely.
And it is remarkable to hear the similarities and how these teams are built. Kelvin always talks about his respect for programs. Teams are one thing. I think Kelvin's definition of a team is something that comes and goes. A program is something you sustain, and even with those three freshmen likely being one and dones, I think this is the basis of a program, and Kelvin was very complimentary of Tyrese Proctor and his growth, mentioning how this is now the third time in 3 years that he will have seen Proctor because they scrimmaged, which I believe was Proctor's freshman year.
Yep.
Then they played last year in the NCAA tournament. Now they're playing again. How important is he to getting things going? Because point guards mean everything to the Houston culture and the Houston way of doing things. Could Proctor have a bad game, and is Duke deep enough for them to overcome that?
Yeah, Tyrese Proctor is a guy that you love what you get from him, whatever it is, because he's going to play hard, he's going to play well on the defensive end, and whether his shot's falling or not, his attitude remains the same. And that's another common thread amongst this Duke team. They're all level. You know, no one's ever too high. I would say Isaiah Evans is probably the one wild card on the team as to high and low when it comes emotion-wise. Tyrese Proctor he's the steadying force for this Duke team. So whether he has 6 points or whether he has 26 points, as long as he's bringing that edge and attitude, the Duke Blue Devils can still win. I mean, because honestly, he's their third option anyway. Mm-hmm. When you look at the scouting report, if I'm Coach Sampson, he's the third guy I'm concerned about. It might be fourth because of we got to put Malawatch up there now just due to the size discrepancy.
Yeah.
This team, man, this is probably one of the best Duke teams. This is probably the best Duke team in the one and done era. And if they are able to seal the deal tonight, and then even if they just make it to Monday night, I think they could be a all-time great Duke team, with Cooper Flagg being on the Mount Rushmore of Blue Devils all time with just the year that he's had from opening tip-off until the very end.
Yeah. And, you know, one thing, I want to get back to this. You talked about the rebounding, because I think that's going to be extremely important tonight, and it may not be the sexy stat or the one that, you know, we end up looking at as soon as the game ends, but it's going to be the thing that maybe does end up making the difference. Houston gets so many of their points on offense on second chance points. I think, you know, they rebound at like over 30% rate. They're one of the best rebounding teams in the country, but so is Duke. How much do you see what happens on the glass play an outcome in tonight's game?
The best chance for Houston to be able to win the rebounding discrepancy is to out-physical.
Yeah.
That's the only way. They're going to have the boxes and elbows. They're putting elbows in between ribs. They got to move guys off their spot. They're going to have to make Malawach, who is a little bit, if I had one concern, not even concern, or just one criticism of
he can get pushed around.
He can get pushed around a little bit.
Yeah.
His hands aren't that strong. His shoulders aren't.
I'll say it.
But he's young. You know,
Yeah.
he's 18 years old. He just started playing basketball, I think, at the age of 14. So I mean,
Wow.
he's just getting started in this thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he has the edge that he's going to be able to match that intensity that Houston's going to bring or going to have if they're going to win the rebounding numbers.
As we continue here from the Convention Center in San Antonio, earlier today there was a floating pep rally with all four schools obviously being represented. Here's one thing that Houston certainly has an advantage, where Houston has an advantage, and that is fans. There are so many Cougar fans here being so close to Houston, and for those who follow Houston, that's a good sign, because when we were in Indianapolis, it was 18,000 fans.
That was unfair, though. That was
18,000
Yeah.
fans in the stands, and it was 16,000 Purdue. Game 2, 18,000 fans in the stands, 16,000 fans for Tennessee. I'm on the KHOU 11 Facebook page right now. If you want to pull up your Facebook page, if anyone has any questions that they want to throw our way, we'll be happy to answer any of them about what's happening here in San Antonio. How do we see this game play out? We've touched on it quite a bit,
Yes.
but if you have any questions, please let us know. Let us know what you're thinking, and we'll give you our best answers. But again, this is a daunting task for Houston and for any team to come in here and play Duke. Houston seems very relaxed, veteran team when it comes to the college ranks. Great coach. Does Duke seem any different to you from how they've seen or looked during the regular season to what you're seeing now?
Again, the way that this team is just, their baseline is where they stay, whether they win or lose. I mean, they're relaxed. They don't put pressure on themselves. They have expectations of themselves. This team, wearing the Duke name is something that they talk about a lot, and a lot of other teams I've heard say, it's a lot that comes with this. This team, they say, you're fortunate enough to have this Duke name on your chest. Right. And now we have to represent what that stands for and what that means. I think they have a different perspective as to what this journey is. 3 years into the Coach Shire era, a lot of folks had a lot of questions, didn't know if he was the right guy when he was named the replacement for the legendary Hall of Famer, Coach Mike Krzyzewski. In my opinion, he's answered those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Two Elite Eights, 2 Sweet 16s, and now a first Final Four in 3 years. I mean, you can't win the national title every year.
No.
You can't. They haven't won a national title since 2015.
And that was something that Kelvin Sampson brought up during one of the media sessions here, was that John Shire has been so good that you really don't hear anyone bring up Coach K's name.
No.
And that just shows what he's been able to accomplish in such a short period of time.
Yeah, it's a program of excellence. You mentioned, Houston having the idea of the home court advantage here in San Antonio, and they should. I'm sure that their fans will outnumber, just in terms of number, outnumber the Duke fans. But one thing I'll say, you mentioned having that Duke name across their chest. Duke is pretty used to being hated everywhere that they go. I think. So I don't know that the crowd is going to play much of a difference tonight, because I think that Duke is always Duke wherever they go. They're like the Yankees,
They
right?
are very much. They have a lot of overlap in their fan base as well. I'll tell you this, there's only about 3 places I can name that the Duke Blue Devils can play a basketball game and not be hated. Of course, Cameron Indoor,
Right.
Madison Square Garden, and then where we just were at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah.
Those are probably the only 3 places that
Interesting.
Duke can have a feel of it's a home court. Now, I'll tell you this, the fan base travels exceptionally well. And they have a lot of resources to be able to
Disposable income?
Very disposable. And so they have a lot of folks that can take off a day of work, take off a weekend can possibly miss a Monday or Tuesday if need be to go check out their favorite team, jump on a jet, jump on a plane, get out here and support their Blue Devils, because this is something, again, like the Yankees, that a lot of people are born into and don't even really have a connection to. They just, oh, my dad liked Duke and we're Duke fans.
Right.
And you live in New Jersey. You live in Providence, Rhode Island.
Right.
Are you getting any questions from?
We got a very important question.
Okay.
What time is the tip off?
Well, that is TBD, because it won't start until 40 minutes after the first game. The first game is 5:09, I believe.
5:09.
5:09.
That's right.
Central Time.
Central Time,
Yes.
yes. And then also the original tip time for Houston was what, 7:29? Was that what they
It's
posted?
49.
7:49.
49.
But it could be any time after that.
It's 40 minutes after that first game ends.
Yep.
So 40 minutes after that first game ends. One thing that's intriguing to me about this game, it's from a storyline perspective, right? Because you've got Duke, this team that has all the tangibles, right? Like the incredible numbers, the incredible offense, AP Player of the Year, versus Kelvin Sampson's team in the Cougars, who seem to have the intangibles and the storylines, right? The effort, the culture. Not to say that Duke doesn't have those things, right? But they're just maybe considered the strengths of Houston's team. I just think that's interesting. When you go into a Final Four game, you don't often get that kind of matchup between two teams, and I do think this is going to be a classic game. I think it's going to have a classic finish.
Well, I think Kelvin Sampson, one of the amazing things about Kelvin Sampson and the programs he builds is that typically the sum is greater than all of its parts.
Right.
Yes, he's produced a number of NBA players, but these guys on this team, they are known for their grit and determination, and it's culture and family. And I think that while Duke certainly is a group of NBA players, without a doubt, Houston is a unit that plays above its ceiling.
Absolutely.
And now the question is, can Houston do that for 40 minutes and knock down a giant? As you mentioned, potentially one of the greatest teams in college basketball history, which is crazy to say in this era that we live in with the transfer portal and NIL and players moving in and out. But it is certainly a credit, and Duke fans are Duke fans, and they're used to this stuff. They are used to this stuff. Houston is a program that was great in the 80s. Phi Slamma Jamma took a nosedive, let's be honest. And Kelvin Sampson has built this program into an elite program. But the big question tonight will be, does it have enough of whatever it needs to take down Duke? So let's wrap this up. Who wants to go first about what needs to happen for X team to win?
Okay.
You want to go first?
I can go first. That's fine. You have to take that ceiling that you're talking about for Duke, which is absolutely higher than the one for Houston, and you have to, if you're Houston, have them meet more in the middle. You have to play outstanding defense, as you have always had. You have to hope that one or two of those players that are so excellent for Duke offensively come back down to earth a little bit and maybe don't have as great of games. And then you have to, in the end, be close enough to give yourself a chance to win. You cannot go on runs where you fall asleep and you go down by 10 or double digits. There will be no recovering from that tonight against the Duke team. They are going to put the dagger in early if Houston gets down by double digits. Keep the game close, give yourself a chance, and at the end of the game, you have the opportunity to still win, hopefully, maybe even potentially being the better conditioned team if you look at that as one of the strengths.
Maybe give Jaelen the last word? What do you think?
Yes, I agree.
All right.
You want the last word?
Let's
Give
do
him
it.
the last word.
First, I want to say, I know it feels like I've been raining on the Houston parade, and I don't want to do that.
No,
Because- now
you
check
have
this out.
utmost respect for Houston.
I love this program.
Yeah?
I love what Coach Sampson has been able to do. I picked him to win the national title the last 3 years on my
Wow.
bracket. The last 3 years on my bracket.
But you can't foresee some of the injuries that happen along the way.
Exactly. And so I wanted to clear that up there first.
I didn't get that sense. I didn't get that sense
I didn't
at
get
all.
that sense either.
Excellent. I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page with that. But I do say, if Houston's going to win this game, I'm going to give you 3 stats
Okay.
to look at.
Okay.
We won't give Jaelen the last word now. No, go ahead.
Transition points,
Okay.
Houston's got to win by at least 10.
Okay.
They've got to keep the rebounding differential under 5.
Yeah.
And they got to stop. They cannot turn the ball over. They cannot turn the ball over. They have to have under 12 turnovers in this game.
Okay.
Because you give Duke extra possessions, they capitalize.
Right.
So I think those are those 3 areas for those that may not be as deep into the X's and the O's. If you want to look at the stat sheet, those are 3 areas to look at the end of the night. Whoever you see winning or whoever wins, those 3 stats are going to show you exactly why.
I'm going to add one. Second chance points.
I like that too.
Second chance points. Kelvin Sampson always talks about the first shot. He's not necessarily worried about the first shot going in. It's the second and the third. If Houston can win the battle of second chance points, if Houston can win the battle of the hustle stats, and if Houston can keep this game in the 60s,
Duke hadn't
I don't
finished
know
in
if
the
you're
60s
gonna be
all
able-
year long.
if they can. I'm not saying. I would feel great. Low 70s as well.
That's
I
your best
like
bet.
Houston's chances. So, predictions?
I'll go first. I'll say, you guys aren't going to like this, but I got Duke by 12 tonight.
Duke by 12.
Wow.
12.
Now I'd have to go back and look to see when was the last time
Wow.
Houston lost by double digits.
I tell
Wow.
you what, they have a lot of common opponents this year. Auburn,
Yeah.
Alabama, Kansas. Duke fared very well against all of those teams. They did lose to Kansas. That was early in the year. Cooper Flagg had the late turnover in his second or third game of his college career. Everybody said, oh, you can't give the ball to Cooper Flagg in crunch time. Well, that shows not to be the case. He's proven otherwise. I don't know if Houston is going to be deep enough and have enough offensive firepower to match up with this Duke team. And if they keep this thing in the 70s, then I'll pick Houston. But once it hits 79, all money's going on Duke's side.
I don't. Do you really watch Houston basketball? 12 points? It looks. Granted, they've only lost 4 times.
Exactly.
And it looks like the largest deficit has been 5. They haven't lost by more than 5 points all season.
Fair.
All right, so 12 would be something. I keep wanting to say Houston, but then I keep talking to all these people from Carolina, and it scares me. But I'm going to have faith in the game plan. I'm going to have faith in the production of Houston's top players. I'm going to go for the upset. I'm going to say Houston 71, Duke 69.
Woo! At the buzzer?
No,
Duke
free
under
throws at the end.
70
Yeah.
points. Wow. Yeah, that's a bold prediction.
It
That's
is
a hot
bold-
take,
it
Jason.
is a hot take,
That is
fearless
that is
prediction.
a sizzling take today.
I think we put 2 hot ones out there.
All right, yesterday, Juwan Roberts talking to the media, talking about in the summer how the Houston basketball team was forced to run a mile as their conditioning test. If one guy on the team did not make it under the assigned time, which was very fast, by the way. I think it was like 5:40 for the bigs and 5:20 for the guards.
Because that's a big difference.
I mean, yeah, but
I'm not seeing those numbers.
I mean,
I'll tell you that.
that is a fast mile, number one. Okay, so to be able to do that, that tells you the kind of conditioning that Kelvin Sampson has preached for this program. My point is that at this point in the season, there is going to be some kind of fatigue. And I think that Houston may be able to end up pulling this game out strictly because of the determination, the conditioning, the intangibles that we talked about that go all the way back to the summer. And I'll tell you one thing, this team, every guy on that team is not going to let one of their teammates down. And that was really the point of them running that mile. So with all that said, 74-72, Houston pulls off the upset.
Wow. Right along station lines.
This is how funny that works out. We did get a question.
Okay.
Though. That's from Jamie. They wanted to know if Coach Sampson is able to win a national title this year. Do you think he rides off into the sunset?
I would say no, and here's why.
Okay.
You think he
Really?
will? You think he'll ride off in the sunset?
I do.
See, I don't necessarily think he will
Okay.
because they have, and I don't know what Duke's recruiting class is like. It's probably number 1. They have the number 2 recruiting class in the country coming in. 1 5-star, maybe 2 4-stars, and a 3-star, and I just don't know if he's going to. Granted, the culture's so strong, and you're going to get Kellen Sampson and Hollis Price. I don't think he will. I don't think he will.
I don't either, honestly.
I do, because
Okay.
I think this team is the culmination of Kelvin Sampson's career, of the way he's done things, the way he's preached things.
You know, he did mention something very interesting to me on a question that I asked back in Wichita. He said, I need these players, this team, more than they need me. Now, he's also talked many, many times about this being a players-led program. Those are the best programs, the ones that are led by the players. But it was very interesting the way he phrased that and said that. And one of our local reporters in Houston followed up maybe a week and a half later, and Kelvin didn't really say much. Maybe he's thinking about it. I don't know.
I think above all things, Kelvin Sampson is a motivator. He's a teacher.
Yep.
Basketball is his office, but he is a teacher. And I think what he's seen this team accomplish, if they were to go off and win the national championship, I mean, how could he have more put his imprint on a program or on a specific team within that program than the one he did this year? And I think he's going to think, I've got the program in a fantastic place.
It's
Talk
family.
About Kellen.
Daughter
This is the
Karen
time.
is there.
You know, I mean, I
Or
would
wife
think,
Karen, I'm
wife
sorry.
Karen.
Yes.
I would think
Lauren,
that
his daughter,
Lauren,
yes.
his daughter. I would think that he feels like this is the culmination of everything I've done. It come to fruition.
Well, we'll see if that even becomes a factor.
We'll see.
We will know in about 6 hours, maybe. About 6 hours, 7 hours.
How many overtimes are we going to? I mean, that's
I
really
would
what
love
it
a
comes
little.
down.
I would love a little overtime. I'm not
Instant
gonna
classic,
lie.
right?
I mean, why not? Let's do it.
Let's do it. We're here.
All right, for Jaelen, Zack, I'm Jason. Thank you so much for watching this preview of Duke and Houston, the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country, ready to roll here in San Antonio. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great night.